Welcome to He Say, She Say, the live stream where legal principles meet the heart. I'm Shar, founder of Law for Love, the most special place in the legal system in Atlanta. And after nearly 14 years as a divorce attorney, I realized that the very same tools that we use to end marriages can actually be used to save them. So I completely changed my path and now am here to help you navigate the challenges of love, commitment, and communication. Join us as we explore how to rebuild and strengthen your marriage one conversation at a time. This is the phone call to let me know that I was muted. I love y'all. Y'all, let me tell you something. Law for Love, He Say, She Say would not even be possible without you, family. Thank you so much for calling me Sister Princess to let me know that I was running my mouth muted the whole time. You have a laugh so that you don't cry, right? So I'm going to rewind. Did you know that planning your estate in your marriage is a powerful tool for building connection, trust, and communication with your sweetheart? This is a subject that I am actually super duper passionate about. In fact, the more I think about it, estate plans do fall into the realm of contract law, and I'll teach you a little bit more about that as we go along. And I wanted to share with you why I'm so passionate about estate planning, particularly. Of course, it comes from a personal matter. And this happened when I was in my second year of law school. My aunt passed away. And before my aunt passed away, she called my mom and asked my mother if my mother would be the executor of her estate. Now, the executor is the person you trust to carry out your final wishes. And that is who my mother was to her sister. And my mother accepted responsibility. So my aunt, she was a banker. She had been a banker for more than 25 years. And she had stuff all over the place. She documented inside of her place where she told my mother she would be able to find everything. And so the agreement was made, the responsibility was accepted that my mother would carry out her sister's last wishes. But what we didn't know as a family was that my aunt had been battling cancer for more than 10 years and no one knew, not even her sisters. She had not even told her sisters that she had gone through several surgeries and she had been going through all type of chemotherapy and the whole whatever. And she was that person who just kept her struggle very close to her vest. She didn't have anyone walking with her through that. She handled that on her own. And so when she fell into decline, the decline happened rapidly. It happened surprisingly. Nobody saw it coming because my auntie was just like the epitome of the strong black woman. And y'all, that's another reason why, like, I can't stand the strong black woman. Like, the strong black woman got to go because ain't no way you going through these kind of diagnoses, these kind of procedures by yourself. Please stop, strong black women. So anyway, she went real quick. It was like one day we got the news that she wasn't doing well, and like in less than a month, auntie was gone. Well, as though that wasn't traumatizing enough for the family, like she here one day and the next minute she just like her decline wasn't incremental, it was just sudden. My mother goes to find the estate documents that her sister told her would be in a very specific particular place. But what had happened was, and what happens to a lot of families, and I'm not even going to exclude anyone's culture because the same phenomenon happens in any situation where somebody knows somebody getting ready to die and it's some money, it's some property, it's something to be had, somebody is going to show up with the ignorance. And that's what happened in my family. And the documents could not be found. Now the documents are gone. And there were so many people in and out of the house and people who stayed there, people who had the opportunity and the reason to move stuff or to make sure certain things disappeared. We ended up with the mystery of the disappearing will. And it was after my aunt's death that my family was literally split down the middle and the resulting fallout from not having my aunt's will. So that was the year that I decided that I would gift an estate plan, a last will and testament, and other documents that we're talking about tonight to my entire family. And I'm like, look, I'm not charging. This is a gift. We can't do this again. Like, this is too much. And my mother, she saw the vision. She jumped on it. She and her baby sister, they both took the time to sit down with me and do their estate plan and make their wishes known. And my mother, she was such a character about her estate planning. And you have different personality types when it comes to these kind of conversations. You have people who are very business oriented when it comes to the fact that you know that you need to take care of this. So you just deal with the business of taking care of it. You have people who go as far as they not only make the plan for who get the stuff, they go ahead and pre-purchase their final resting place. And you even have some gangsters out here who write their own obituary. Like, so some people are very business oriented when it comes to estate planning. Other people don't want to talk about it. Some people think they jinx themselves, like there's some kind of superstition around having conversations about the fact that the day will come when you take your last breath. Like, that day will come, whether you talk about it and plan for it or not. That day is coming for you. So anyway, mom, she was not only the one who was like, let's talk about it, let's deal with it. But my mom was a character. So the playful person that she was, extremely playful. I'm very thankful that my mother played with us. My mother watched cartoons with us, and she passed on the gift of play and laughter to us. But even in her final instructions, she used these words. She said, "Don't wear black to my funeral, and don't bury me." She said, "Cremate me. Don't throw my money into the ground." She had a couple of instructions for the final burial. She said, "Don't play sad music. I want y'all coming in there doing the bank head bounce. And do not throw my money into the ground because I want y'all to at least be able to have a chicken dinner when I'm gone." Those were my mother's instructions, right? So when the day came that my mom began to fail in her health, all of the documents that I had prepared while I was still in law school, they came through for me as a person who was in charge as her next in kin and caregiver and person to contact on her behalf to handle her banking. I was able to do all of that before she became sick, before she was too weak to handle business. And then when the day came that we lost my mother, I knew my marching orders. I didn't have to think about it. My brother, he knew that mom had told me what to do, and he trusted that I was that person, the executor who would carry out mom's wishes. We did not have any falling out, fighting, and foolishness because my mother loved us enough to handle her business before she left. And so, in my world, planning your estate is one of the greatest acts of love because it's hard enough when you're gone. I remember getting through that week of planning mom's memorial service. Number one, I'm planning it from out of state with my brother and his wife who were down in Florida. I'm in Atlanta. We had meetings every day to execute the plan. And we got through the memorial service, pulled it off exactly how my mama said. Everybody showed up with colors, not just the family either. We had put the word out in the street, though. Come to our mama funeral with black. She wanted everyone to wear bright colors. Her favorite color was red. We all showed up in different shades of red, burgundy, pink. And my brother arranged with the worship team at their church to play praise music. Some people were like literally confused at her memorial service, like, what is going on? But mom's instructions was, don't play no sad music. I want y'all to dance and have a party because I'm going to see Jesus. This is what my mom said, right? So we get through the memorial service. We did everything she wanted us to do, and we had the peace of knowing that this is what our mother wanted. And I remember going to get her remains, her ashes from the funeral home after the memorial service. And then and only then was I able to just begin the breakdown and the crying because the business of the memorial service was done. The business of dealing with the accounts and stuff was taken care of. And I knew that I did right by her by keeping her wishes for the day when that day came. And so for me, I'm committed to passing on that same type of legacy, not only to my children, but I love helping and walking people through the same process because it can be overwhelming. So that's why we're having this conversation, because it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It can be a marriage building activity and it can be an adventure. You can actually have some fun with actually determining what that last day is going to look like. So when I say estate plan, there are three main documents that is in every single estate plan that everybody needs to have. The first document, we all have heard of your last will and testament. You need your last will and testament because in that document, you're saying, these are my final wishes. This is the person that I'm trusting to carry out my wishes. And this is where all my stuff is going. That's basically what your last will and testament is. You make that statement and you complete that document in front of some witnesses. And the best type will also include a notary, which will have some different statements that makes it harder for someone to challenge the will as being valid. The second document of every estate plan is going to be your power of attorney. The power of attorney is the document that you make sure you have in the event you need someone to help you manage your affairs. So, naturally, in a husband and wife relationship, many people have very little difficulty navigating the access to accounts or taking care of business or bills when they're already married. But there are couples who have property or stocks or other types of value or assets that are only in one person's name. And when you have these type of assets that are not in both names, and more now in the modern marriage, it's more common that something might be in the husband's name or something might be in the wife's name, and both of your name might be on one thing. Well, guess what? You have a combination of ownership, even as a married couple. The power of attorney is going to give your spouse or some other trusted person authority to access your stuff to take care of your needs while you're still alive, to handle your business on your behalf. And so that kind of situation is like an incapacitation, right? If you are hospitalized for a prolonged period of time and you need help with making sure your bills are getting paid, that things that you normally take care of are being taken care of while you're going through some type of temporary or prolonged incapacitation. Well, this document is the key to your stuff for the person you trust. Again, we are talking about husbands and wives here, but for some, we're also talking about maybe a child or maybe a neighbor or maybe a close friend, that person who you know loves you and who is going to do right by you and who's going to follow your instructions. It is challenging when we work with families who maybe they don't have that kind of relationship or trust, or maybe like every you have all of the family, but the family has like issues with handling money or being forthcoming or doing right with certain things. You don't trust certain people. You might trust certain people with helping you navigate your health decisions, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but you might not necessarily trust them with your money. So there could be a whole combination of who do I trust. But the question of who do I trust is the very first question that you get to explore and make a decision about when you're planning your estate. Because if it's not somebody that's in your generation, maybe you might need to look down to the next generation. And I'm a big fan of appointing someone in your generation and also identify, the up and coming young folks who are the ones who are showing responsibility and maturity that you may be able to place trust in when it comes to certain type of decisions. So the power of attorney, most people think access to your bank account, paying your bills, and those are generally the types of things you want to have a power of attorney for. Another quick note too here about power of attorney: if you are a parent of a young adult, someone who was in high school last year and now they're out adulting and doing life in these streets as an adult, you also want to have a conversation with your young adult about giving you power of attorney. That is a big issue that parents run into. We once had a family where a young adult male ended up in the hospital, and his mother was being completely ignored by the hospital staff because he was an adult, and she did not have the status in the eyes of the hospital to ask questions, get documents, or make demands concerning his health care until we got a power of attorney in place for this young man. So if you do have a young adult, they're no longer under the age of 18, it's a great opportunity to have that conversation about, hey, look, I know you're an adult and I'm respecting your space, but just in case something happens, would you be okay with giving me a power of attorney so that if I ever need to contact anybody on your behalf or I ever need to deal with something in an emergency, I have this document for you. that is something that I highly recommend across the board for parents of young adults. So, the third document in the estate plan is the living will. It's also called an advance directive for healthcare decisions. And essentially, what that is a document where you communicate to your husband, your wife, your children, whoever your loved ones are, what types of medical decisions you pre authorize. So you get to make decisions such as would you authorize an autopsy if the circumstances of your death are suspicious? Do you want this person or your agent, again, the trusted person, to have the authority to order an autopsy to discover the reason for your death? Uh, Typically, we find with older clients that are like, "Yeah, I'm old. Don't waste your time." That's a common response with older people making their estate plan. But some people do want to have an investigation done if their loved ones suspect there might be some funny business around the circumstances of their death. So that's one of the decisions you get to make in a living will. You also get to make the decision whether or not you want your organs donated. And so that is a decision that you get to make in your living will, whether or not you can donate my organs and whether or not you can donate my body to science. Now, I have very strong opinions about that. I'm not trying to leave my organs in my in my body to science. Y'all not bringing me back as the killer RoboCop thing. We're not doing that with my remains. But some people want to be able to donate their organs, so you can make that clear to your trusted person, your agent, whether or not you want your organs donated. Another decision that you get to make is about you can tell your agent or your appointed person what type of medical treatment you want if you're unable, if you're unconscious, like if you're comatose, if you are not able to advocate for yourself. Do you want oxygen or any kind of life support? Oxygen? Do you want a feeding tube? Do you want artificial fluids? Do you, if your heart stops, do you want to be resuscitated? When you make these kind of decisions in advance, when everything is fine, when the sun is shining and the butterflies of the sunshine are full and abundant, and the day comes where you may need these type of decisions made for you, if your husband or your wife already knows what your wishes are, and I'm telling you, even when we do this, we go through this process with couples don't have the same, like, they don't have the same things across the board. Some, the husband might be like, look, just let me go. And the wife be like, look, try everything, and keep me on for another 6 months. You can really spell those decisions out, but please don't assume that what your husband would want for his medical care, if you had to advocate for him, or what your wife would want for her medical care, if you had to advocate for her, please don't assume that those things are the same. And a lot of times, couples find that out when we're doing the estate plan. And it's a beautiful conversation to have, because you will hope that you would never be in a position to have to do it. But by having a conversation when everything is perfectly fine, in the event it happens that you need that document, the burden of making the decision is not as heavy of not knowing what my loved one will want. Does that make sense? I know I've been like going in, but does that make sense? So yeah, I'm not coming back as RoboCop. So that is the part of the basic estate plan. Those three documents make up every single estate plan. Now, where I get really, really excited and where I really love expressing this opportunity for empowerment to my community is when it comes to talking about trust. Trust are the tools that the wealthy have used for generations to protect their wealth and their privacy. It's heartbreaking, and I've gotten these calls where my family member just died. Can you help us? And absolutely not. Once the person has passed away, everything that they are attached to, whether it's land, whether it's personal property, vehicles, even in this age, your email account and your social media accounts, all of that stuff now belongs in the domain of the probate court. And the probate court is nowhere that you want to be. And the probate court is nowhere where you want your loved ones to be after you have transitioned to the great by and by. So if you want to keep your family out of the probate court, even if you have a will, even if you have a will, your family will end up in the probate court if you own any type of property that transfers with a deed. Typically, that's going to be real estate. Any type of property that transfers with a deed, even if you have a will, your estate will have to be overseen by a court. So, what the wealthy have done is that they have created a legal instrument called a trust. Now, oddly enough, in law school, we never saw what a trust looked like. It was the name of our class, Trust in Estates. The class was actually called Trust in Estates. But the only thing we were taught about a trust was the definition of the trust, because that was the only thing that they would test us on the bar exam. We were never taught how to create one. We never got to see a sample of one. And so after being in my own practice close to 10 years, I had a client, very unusual in the legal aid space, but I had a client who was expecting to come into some money. And I heard that a trust would be the best way to protect the client. So I began to get my hands on a copy of one so that I can begin building a trust for my client to protect my client's money from being taxed or disqualifying their public benefits, because that's another use of a trust, is to protect public benefits. Well, I called all of these different attorneys, local attorneys, to try to help me out. Right? Like, I work for legal aid, help me out. Y'all would have thought I was asking for Colonel Sanders' secret recipe for his chicken. It was such a closely held secret. I was so confused. I did not understand, why is nobody able to send me a sample? Why is nobody able to send me what this document looks like so I can put my eyes on it and I can begin to construct one based on what the statute is saying? No one. And when I tell you, I contacted a lot of attorneys here in Atlanta trying to find one of these trusts. You would have thought I was looking for the hidden treasure of Atlantis. That's what got me started, like really wondering, what are trusts, and why haven't we seen it, and what do we need to do to get our hands on one? So when I finally, with the help of my first intern in private practice, we were able to get our hands on documents. We were able to secure software, and I was able to get up to speed. I learned quickly that a trust is a big, beautiful contract between you and your stuff that keeps your stuff out of probate court. That is what the trust is. The trust keeps your stuff out of probate court. And what is so beautiful about it, you name your trusted person who is your trustee, and this trustee has power according to your contract, your appointment of power by contract, to manage your stuff without asking a judge for permission. This person is empowered by contract to go and locate all of your stuff wherever it is, announce themselves with the proof of your documents that you are the trustee and you are authorized to access stuff to follow the instructions of the trust left behind by the person who passed away. Good, you're welcome. Um, does a trust work along with the will? Yes. So in my world here at Law for Love, and what I typically structure for my clients is that we do the will and we leave everything you have in the will. The will says, I leave it all to my trust. So the trust becomes where all of your stuff goes. And then the trust, by its own instruction, empowers the trustee to control your property and to carry out your instructions without having to go to court. So when I tell you, I'm sick and tired of seeing Black folks and Latino folks sitting up in the probate court looking sad and ugly, I can't stand it, y'all. Like when I say that the main people that's clogging up the courts are Black and Latinos, I'm not even like over exaggerating here. We go running into that system. It's gonna take months in some cases to even get a sheet of paper authorizing somebody to go and make an inventory of all the stuff. And at the end of the day, who wants to be on the hunt for your stuff? So when you're talking about husbands or wives, even sometimes y'all, husbands and wives be having little stuff that they tucked away, or especially wives. Wives are good for this one. They have a little account, their little emergency, just in case he start acting crazy account that nobody knows about. Well, guess what? If you put it in a trust, even if hubby kind of happens upon it later, you go before he goes, he finds out about it later. Well, he as a trustee, now he can go and access that account without having to go to court. You don't want to leave your sweetheart after you dead and gone. Now they got to go to court to go and deal with your stuff. Like, that's not love, y'all. I'm sorry, family. It's just something that I feel very strongly about. There was this lady who I had spoken to years ago. Her husband passed away, and there was a check sent from an insurance claim that he had, and the check was made out in his name. Well, she was told, because everybody has advice when somebody passed away, y'all. Like, everybody has advice, and some of this advice will get you messed up. Like, just when somebody passes away, the first thing you want to do is just process the fact that somebody just passed away, because you're gonna have your neighbor, your cousin, your auntie, your friend, or everybody got, oh, well, did you call and tell so and so? Did you call and tell them? Don't do that. Don't start calling and telling anybody that your husband or your wife or your loved one has passed away. Do not do that. We're not always thinking straight after a loss. And some of the best advice, some of the best advice my mother ever got was from my dad's cousin. When my daddy passed away, my dad's cousin told my mom, do not close any bank accounts with his name on it. That's got you and his name on it. And I'm gonna tell you something. Sure enough, payments came in with only my daddy's name on it. How else was my mama gonna cash the check? She was able to endorse and put that check in that account with my daddy's name on it. And this lady, listening to everybody else, because everybody has advice. Everybody has advice when life be lifing. Oh, make the phone calls. Tell everybody he's dead. Blah, blah, blah. Well, she closed the joint account. So when the check came, only in her husband's name, guess where homegirl had to go get the money? She had to file a probate because she didn't have anywhere to put her husband's check. Don't go closing stuff. Don't go calling everybody. We had a young lady, her mom passed away. This young lady, she was only like 23 years old. And she didn't know what to do. We don't always have these conversations about what to do when someone dies. I'm telling you right now, stop, collaborate, and listen. Okay, sorry, but like, just stop, just pause, just process. Don't start making phone calls. Don't start sending emails. Don't start telling everybody somebody died, because you're not always thinking through what access you might need while everything's getting sorted out. Young lady had called her mother's mortgage company. My mama died. She was instantly locked out. She was unable to find out any information about how much the mortgage was. She was unable to send any mortgage payments, and she was unable to stop them from foreclosing on her mama condo because she didn't know any better. And she quick made a call. My mama died. And all of this was happening before she ever got to the information about how to go to probate to deal with stuff. And again, this is another reason why we need estate plans. This is another reason why if you own a house, if you own a condo, you need a trust, because if you have these things, court is out of the picture. There is no court. Your trusted person, your trustee, has full authority to handle the business of settling your affairs. And it broke my heart when I had to tell that lady after her husband died, I'm sorry, you got to go to probate court to go to cash that check. She was cutting me out. She was mad at me for giving her the advice that there's nothing I can do. You close the joint account and you can't endorse this check into your account. You got to go to the probate judge. Don't go doing stuff all fast. Sometimes old folk wisdom will have you right. Can a trust be set up to automatically include future land acquisitions, as should, hold on, let me blow this up so I can read it. I'm not even going to sit up here and play with myself. Can a trust be set up to automatically include future land acquisitions, or should the trust be updated every time you acquire land? You need to amend your trust, or simply acquire the land in the name of your trust. Acquire the land in the name of your trust. So the way that I do trust, the trust, I have a catch-all. I have a catch-all document that includes all property of any type, wheresoever located, and howsoever titled. That blanket language. But the way you want to make sure that future land is in your trust is either you have that land when you purchase it, have that deed transferred to your trust, and that will include it into your trust. You pay the probate courts. You pay the probate court. You pay a filing fee. You pay and wait in, and your feelings hurt, and you can't get the stuff. And then don't mess around and have an ignorant family member who just squatting and living in the house that they're not supposed to be living in, and they're not paying bills, and you can't do anything about it until the judge gives you a court order. Like, it's so much. Do y'all know that there were two classes in law school that were like reading? It was like reading uh soap operas. First, it was the law of torts, like the accident law, how people get injured and the types of accidents people get into because of negligence. That is like reading a soap opera. And the other soap opera law school class is estates and trust. Some of the most raggedy, ratchet stuff you could ever imagine has happened when people die. You have the nightmare stories of the guy who had the ex-wife. He remarries, and he and his new wife, they good because they married and they living life wonderfully together for like the next 25 years. And he's still with the same job that he always had when he dies. Well, his life insurance paperwork with the job never was updated to pay the insurance to the new wife. And now the new wife trying to take the ex-wife to court to get the life insurance, and there's nothing she can do. Nothing. Because if you are passing on property that is attached to what's called a beneficiary designation or a pay on death designation, it does not matter that you're not married to him or her anymore. It does not matter you have been with your current husband or wife for the past 50, 11 years. If that document that passes that benefit by paperwork to a beneficiary has the wrong person on it, the wrong person will get the benefit or the property. Yes, we include, so everybody has a different practice style, but of course, my style includes the good, bad, and the ugly. Because I've seen our people act crazy. Buzzards start showing up when flesh is dying. Like, you see the ignorance, right? So when I do an estate plan, I go through these things with my people. Like, look, don't go paying off all the credit cards. Right? Don't do that. Them not your credit cards. Don't go paying off all those credit cards. Um, don't go closing out accounts. Just process. Wait. People gonna be calling, crying, hollering. You got to get through final arrangements. Don't touch anything until after you've gotten through the final arrangements and after you sat down and you begin to map things out slowly. But every estate planner is different. The type of instructions that we provide, I am that person that I instruct my clients. Don't go paying off credit card bills. Those bills don't belong to you. Under the law, there are only certain type of bills that are required to be paid from the estate. And so a lot of, you have people who feel like this responsibility. Oh, I got to pay the bills out of the insurance. Well, pause. You got to make sure you have housing. You got to make sure certain statutory payments get covered, and those are going to be described by your state's law. Usually, like the final medical expenses, like that doctor or hospital, those bills are the type of bills that they are entitled to, and certain taxes. But when in doubt, get in touch with your estate planning attorney or your CPA and have a conversation about, what do I have to pay out of this trust. The trust does include a lot of instructions and language about taxes and responsibilities and things that the trustee is not responsible for. And it is very, very powerful, the instructions that we include in the trust. But yes, to answer your question the very long way, we include instructions, and I include the very formal instructions and the very practical instructions, because I've seen crazy. And you can save a lot of extra pain for your loved ones, for the ones that you leave behind. And when your loved one passes away, you can sidestep a lot of mistakes that people made because they just didn't know, or they were in their feelings and they just made a bad call. Yes. Look, when I tell you this, um, when I realized like the power of the trust and how our people, we started getting up to speed about doing wills and things like that, and not realizing, wait a minute, you could keep your whole family out of court with a trust. And when I see that, like, y'all remember when Donald Trump first became president, they had to do a whole bunch of these little different maneuvers and stuff for putting all of his holdings that would have been a conflict of interest for his presidency into a trust. Y'all, they be telling us all the time how they're moving. They're moving in trust. The trust itself has its own EIN number if you want to. Some people operate their businesses out of trust. Trust can be extremely complex because they are private documents for transferring property and protecting wealth from the state. I'm just saying. Thank you, Auntie. Like, and you know what? I personally, I celebrate Black folks. I do. Like when I'm contacted by my community, someone saying, "Hey, I want to do my estate plan. I'm ready to sit down and do it. I've been putting it off." That's usually what I hear. Like, I've been putting it off. I haven't done it. I get excited. Like I celebrate our people because it's so you're so forward thinking when you realize, like, wait a minute, I've been working and I've been saving and I've been building. And the last thing I want is for number one, for myself to fall into the hands of one of the jokers in my family, because every family has a joker. I'm sorry. Or number two, a big chunk of what I worked for and what I built, it ended up getting eaten up by lawyers' fees and by taxes, or even worse, your stuff just ends up being taken by the state because nobody knew where stuff was. So y'all have heard about the what you call it, the unclaimed fund, right? Unclaimed monies that your state has, like you could go and put in your name and you could search if it's any unclaimed money being held by your state. Well, you know why that happens? Because somebody had a piece of property somewhere, or somebody had an insurance policy of some sort, or some type of bank account that ended up dormant that nobody knew about. Nobody knew about it. Nobody knew where it was, what was in it. And so, after a certain amount of time, when an account becomes dormant, or when the insurance company finds out that the insured person has passed away, after the passage of time, if no one has claimed the money, the person who's named as the beneficiary, or the person who's left on there on the pay on death beneficiary, then that institution has to send that money to the state. The state creates that registry entry that this amount of money is sitting here payable to this person. And after a certain amount of time, if this person has not claimed this money, the state gets to keep it. It's a finder's keeper situation when it comes to unclaimed funds. Why? Because somebody didn't know where the stuff was, because somebody didn't communicate their estate plan, because someone didn't leave these instructions and details in their trust or in their will. And we don't have to go out like that. Like we've already put so much into building this country, so much sweat, blood, tears, our lives, our sorrow, like the things that we've worked for, y'all. Let's not take that L. Not when it's just a matter of sitting down and just having these conversations with your sweetheart, getting some guidance from the estate planner, and putting your plan on paper and letting your trusted person or your backup trusted person. I like to have a trustee, a backup trustee, and a backup to the backup. That's me. You don't have to, but you want your trusted person to know what your stuff is and where it is. You want them to have a copy of it. You want to empower people with this information so the state don't take your stuff, and so that your people don't end up sitting in probate court looking sad and ashy when they could have known this stuff and taken care of it before you passed away. That's love. To me, I'm sorry, that's love. So yes, Auntie handled her business. At Auntie, so when I was talking to y'all about them gangsters who have all their stuff done, Auntie is gangster about her planning. Okay, like I want to be like Auntie when I grow up. Like, you know what? I actually asked my kids, Auntie. I said, okay, I got a blended family, right? So I got children from before I got married. I have a child with my husband, and then my husband and my pre-marriage kids. They're not tight. right? They're not cool. So I'm saying to myself, well, if I go before all of them, I don't want my husband and my kids fighting. And I don't want my kids to have to go through my husband, and I don't want my husband to have to go through my kids. So how I set my stuff up was I put everything in a Google Drive and I email all of them. Important. Save this. Estate of mama. Right? All of y'all have the document simultaneously. Nobody has to go through anything. Everybody knows where I got stuff, where I left stuff, and how I'm leaving stuff. And I don't want mess, because sometimes your family dynamics, especially if you have children from a prior relationship and a spouse, that could be strained and it could be difficult. You even have people who got the child that they share together is at odds with the other parent. How do you empower your family? So those are the kind of things we think through, we talk about, and we equip our families like, hey, this is something we can talk about and we can make sure that there's no mess. If you determine that you don't want to leave a mess when you leave and you go to the great by and by, there's certainly a way to make sure there is minimal drama as possible when you're gone. Yet, unclaimed property, unclaimed property. And it's not a bad idea to go and check it every year or two to go see if your name pop up somewhere where the state has determined that you might be a person of interest who has a right to unclaimed property. And that property does belong to the state once a certain amount of years, and that time is determined by the state law. How long before it belongs to the state, how long it becomes a state property. So when you are one of the questions that was asked was about, hey, so how do we approach estate planning if my sweetheart and we don't have kids, we're not really sure who to leave stuff to? Well, the first question you want to ask is, who is my trusted person? You and your loved one, you and your honey, you and your sweetheart should have the conversation about who is your trusted person. Now, almost always, but not always. And again, every family is different. But most of the time, in a husband and wife estate plan, the husband is the wife's trustee and the wife is the husband's trustee. But then you want to take it a step further. And if you don't have children, then the next place that you can consider looking is to your siblings. Do we have siblings on the wife's side or on the husband's side that we both trust to carry out our wishes when the day comes and both of us are gone? And beyond that, brothers and sisters, you can look to friends, closer trusted friends. I've had quite a few estate plans where the trustee is not even a blood relative. The person that's trusted is someone outside of the family who sticks closer than the brother. Doesn't the proverb say, it says that there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother? For many people, in fact, the person who sticks closer to than the brother, the non-blood relative, is actually named as the trustee or the trusted person, even for power of attorney or for medical decisions. It's not always a blood relative. So please don't feel guilty or ashamed if you don't feel that trusting about it being someone that you're actually related to by blood, because sometimes those relationships of trust are actually we have more confidence in people we're not related to by blood than we do with our own blood family for different reasons. And so then the other question was, well, if we don't have kids, where do we leave our stuff? Who do we leave our stuff to? Well, a good place to start is, do you want to leave some type of gift or benefit to your trusted person? Do you want that person to have any part of all that you've worked for and that you've built up? And beyond them, are there nieces and nephews that you would want to set up a college fund for, or some other type of special needs trust? A beautiful thing is a special needs trust. And with a special trust or a special needs trust, you can actually say, hey, this money is going to remain in trust until this person reaches a certain age, so that when they reach the age that they have some sense, they're going to be more responsible with the money. Most of our families build in that type of special language to keep property and trust. That's where the term trust fund baby comes from. This money was left in trust to be managed by a trustee until this person reached an age of responsibility, not to just waste the money. And so you can create a college fund. You can pick a school that you want to set up a fellowship or scholarship fund under. Schools welcome those kind of phone calls. If you want to leave a memorial fund, if you ever have heard of those type of scholarships, like say your last name is Johnson, the Johnson Family Memorial Scholarship. That's what that is. This is a family that decided to choose a school and to create a scholarship fund and to define the type of student who would receive or who would be qualified for that scholarship. So you can say this fund is for this type of child with this kind of circumstance, and this is how they qualify. So that's another way that you can plan out or think about how to leave the benefit of your work and the things that you've built over your lifetime. You can also leave a gift to a charitable organization. A lot of people leave gifts to their churches and other nonprofit associations. You have people who leave gifts to make sure that they provide for the care of their animals, to make sure that this person will be the person that I trust to take care of my animals, and this is the amount that I'm leaving for the care of my animals. You can be absolutely creative. And so the first place that I would say, if you're thinking about where to leave your stuff and you don't have children, perhaps you can say to any children that have been born to me, right? And that includes children that are later born or children that are later adopted, or even grandchildren from later adopted children. So I would say think in terms of 20, 30, 40 years into the future, in terms of what is possible for who you could leave money to. And then if those persons do not exist or those persons predecease you for any reason, to have a backup like a scholarship fund or some type of charitable gift or some type of foundation where you can set up giving on a continual basis as a part of your legacy or your memorial gift to the world for a certain type of benefit, a certain type of mission. So I hope that helps. I hope that helps. And I got everybody. So, any other questions about trust? The trust is a big giant contract between you and your stuff that keeps your stuff out of court when you pass away. And it empowers your trustee to handle your business without having to ask a court for any kind of permission. You avoid the expense, the delay, the frustration, and the pain of the court system. And life continues to go on, and your wealth is not lost because the lack of a plan. So for me, everyone should have a trust, especially if you own real estate. And yes, there are multiple uses for a trust that you can explore with the assistance of your CPA and your estate planning attorney. And with that, y'all, hey, if this was helpful, if you were blessed or encouraged or empowered in any way, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to Law for Love ATL, where we are using the power of love, of the law, to promote love in our families, in our communities, and in the world beyond. With that, I look forward to serving you next time. Be blessed.